Well, it is time for our regular Sunday evening look at the week ahead. The government's back in business, but it's just a temporary fix. Washington negotiators are getting ready to meet for budget talks, and lobbyists are preparing to defend their interests against any cuts that might be coming. Meanwhile, the GOP is dealing with infighting and identity crisis, both made painfully public during the budget standoff. And the Department of Health and Human Services issued an apology for glitches in the website of Healthcare.gov. Site's problems have stopped a lot of people from signing up for health care under the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. So joining me now to talk about this is political analysts O'Brien Murray and Bernard Whitman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so let's first talk about the Republican Party. It seems like they're in trouble. A lot of people say that. First off, I want to get your thoughts on that. Is it fair? Are the Republicans really in that much trouble?
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I think the short answer is any party out of power usually has more than one leader. So in this case, you've got the Speaker, you've got the Minority Leader in the Senate, and you've got the RNC Chair. The party in power, where the White House usually has one message, we have three messengers. That makes it a little bit more challenging to be on the same page of where you want to go. And within those three different areas with the parties, you have an opportunity for any group that's in a minority to try to speak up and have a little more power too, and another voice.
So you don't see the Tea Party as a threat then to the establishment?
No, I mean, think about it. In 2010, we wouldn't have taken over the House without the Tea Party. These are men and women that care about spending, they care about the taxes they pay, they care about the country. They have a different way of doing things somewhat, and they have the right to do that. The question is how everyone's got to work together, whether it be the president, whether it be the Tea Party, whether it be Republicans or Democrats. Reach across the aisle and work together.
So, Bernard, when you hear that, do you worry that we could see another showdown next year when this budget debate comes up again?
Well, I give Obie a huge amount of credit for dramatically oversimplifying the problems the Republican Party has. Let's see exactly what the shutdown did. Number one, it cratered the Republican brand. According to Gallup, the Republican Party has a favorability of 28%, which is the lowest level for any political party ever recorded in the history of Gallup polling, number one. Number two, the Democrats now are ahead of the Republicans by 6 points in the congressional ballot, so you have lost ground electorally across the country. And number three, the Republicans managed to do the one thing that even the president couldn't do, which is spike support for Obamacare by 7 points. The one thing that they were against, they actually drove up favorability towards. So I think the Republican brand is in tremendous difficulty, and Speaker Boehner's got to get control of his conference in order to avoid having another problem like this come the beginning of the year.
Go ahead, O'Brien.
I was going to say, one of the facts you're leaving out there, too, is more than 2/3 of Americans want to get rid of every congressional member, too. That's both parties. That's not Republican, that's not Democrat. The system is broken down there. They have to work across the aisle. You've got a president right now that turned his back on the country and turned his back on the negotiations. He wouldn't negotiate. Valerie Jarrett wanted this whole thing to go on from the beginning, wanted the shutdown. She got what she asked for, and the Republicans didn't have the right message to get through it.
I want to actually toss to some sound from former Republican Congressman Mickey Edwards from Oklahoma. We spoke with him earlier tonight, and he had some interesting thoughts about the future of the Republican Party and kind of what they're facing right now. Let's listen if we can.
If the Republican Party keeps listening to people like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, you know, it's going to go the way of the Whigs. You know, it simply can't survive that way. There are a lot of people who agree with the Republican Party that spending ought to be less, who would like to see the Affordable Care Act revised and so forth. But they don't want to see the government shut down. They don't want to see the United States default on its obligations that we've already incurred. I mean, it just went way too far. It was over the edge, and I think that the strategy that was pursued, you know, could doom the Republican Party unless the people like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell are able to get control of it.
O'Brien, I mean, they say those...
You ready to jump in?
Well, I mean, Jonathan, my point is this. The Tea Party does not have an ideological rift with the mainstream Republican Party. They have a strategic and tactical rift. They feel like they're going to come in, they're going to hold the government hostage until the government bends to their will. That is not how democracy works. The American people did not send their representative to Congress to do exactly that. That's why 3/4 of the American people said, do not pursue this strategy. It cratered the brand.
It's interesting, though, too, if you look at the history of, not the history, but the recent history. Today, New York Post said Oprah Winfrey wouldn't participate in helping promote Obamacare. Jimmy Hoffa, head of the unions, wrote a letter to the president saying it's broken, it's got to be fixed. This is something that had to be addressed. Whether they went about it the right way is the big question, I think.
And that's what I want to talk about, frankly, is this tactic, especially since we could possibly see this again next year. Do you think this tactic of shutting down the government to try to get rid of Obamacare is a good idea?
I think any time you shut down the government is not a good thing. The government that's there has a purpose. what you have is the problem of how to go about trying to dismantle something that has been signed into law and how to undo something like that when it's the president's #1 factor right now in what he's accomplished as far as his presidency. He's not going to roll over and change it. The Senate's not going to let it change right now. So you're picking up a fight that's not going to work. What you really need to do is pick apart at what the problems are in Obamacare, work on the problems and get them fixed, opposed to just say shut down the government without it all getting thrown out.
Well, then, so what do you say to the Tea Partyists who want to shut down the government and are threatening to do it again next year to try to delay Obamacare?
And I mean, my point is, the only way that you are going to get rid of Obamacare is if you elect a majority House, majority Senate, and take over the presidency. If you continue to shut down the government and play hostage-taking politics, you're never going to get the support of the American people to do the very thing that you want to do. It's a fool's errand.
And like I said, I don't want you ganging it up on him, but it is.
There's no ganging up. It's okay. It's Sunday night.
It is a question, though, that I think a lot of people just do not understand. Like, I can see how people could say Obamacare is a bad idea. I get it. And I can see how people say that we need to do something to get rid of it. But to put the country on the edge of default and to shut down the government, how is that successful for the Republican Party?
Well, let's back up. How we got here was because the president refused to negotiate. Let's not forget that, okay? Harry Reid could have passed other legislation. He didn't do it. He wouldn't meet anybody halfway. He wouldn't negotiate it either. So when you talk about it, you can blame one group. This is not a group that controls the House or the Senate. This is a group that has to be reached out to and figure out how do you bring them to the fold. America has to work on both sides of the aisle. That's the best thing that works. We sit here tonight and have a conversation. They have to sit there and have a conversation in Washington.
And in their defense, they are vocal, they're well organized, they're well funded, and they do represent a lot of Americans. But Bernard, I want to ask you also the fact that President Obama tomorrow is going to be talking about problems with the Obamacare website. An apology was issued today for that. Does this not give the critics some credibility here?
Well, that's what's amazing. The Republican Party actually had an opportunity to highlight and make changes to Obamacare, and instead they shot themselves in the foot by going on this crazy tactic of trying to shut down the government instead of actually trying to tinker on the edges with Obamacare. And I think the president is open to that. The program is actually weakened in the public's eyes because people haven't been able to sign on. And so they could have had an opportunity to really make a difference. But here's the thing. 19 million people have tried to access the site. 500,000 are in the process of enrolling. I give credit to the administration for putting together a program that is extremely popular, but I give huge criticism to the administration for not being prepared. Although, you know, from a technological rollout standpoint, this always happens, but it has been rather embarrassing.
When you say it's popular, is it popular because people are being forced to do it or pay fines? Are they being forced to do it because they don't have health care right now and it's the only outlet they've got? Why didn't they work?
That's precisely why.
Why did they work before and allow people to go across state lines? And why not sit in New York, go to New Jersey, or if you're somewhere else, if you're in California, why not go to Nevada? Well, why can't you go across state lines to get this health care? Could have been done years ago.
Well, clearly this debate is going to continue in Washington. We're probably going to see it in the elections coming up next year. Thank you both for your time tonight. We've got to end it there. Thank you so much, O'Brien Murray and Bernard Whitman.
Thank you, Jonathan.